Yes, and in our advocacy, looking at the crisis of public debt, that really goes, even before we entered into the COVID era, our economy was on a very weak footing because of imprudent choices, imprudent development choices. This large infrastructure development, eating up all the money, financed by costly debt, with corruption written in there, conflict of interest, real mismanagement of the economy by the Jubilee administration. Because of that, we are in this economic crisis. But even then, if you listen to the Parliamentary Budget Office, they were looking at the economy and saying majority of people are employed in the agricultural sector, over 50% of Kenyans. This, even during COVID, it was the steadiest contributor to our GDP, because you're talking about the backbone of our economy. Yet, our investments are in places where people aren't employed, where, the large infrastructure employs very few people. So yes, it has to be agriculture. And this is why I'm saying that there are wins. Even before we start the debates, before we go to the election, there are wins. The parties have listened. They have prioritized agriculture because both parties have prioritized agriculture. They have prioritized the informal sector. Both sides have recognized, we've had numerous policies on the role of the informal sector, the importance of the informal sector, but governments keep ignoring them. They have prioritized manufacturing and are linking manufacturing to agro-processing, which is to the agricultural sector, to the informal sector. So they are, committing to make those linkages. So the question becomes... That's why we were saying implementation. Can we trust the political parties, after they have wooed us with their promises, that when they sit in the seats of power, they will do what they have said, that they will listen to the citizens, they will be accountable to the citizens? Do they show in their manifesto the democratic space, civic space, the social accountability back to the citizens, the civic education to empower citizens to be very engaged, and answerability to the citizens? Do they show the public sector transformation to transform from the culture of impunity to the culture of compliance? Do they have the intergovernmental relations? We have seen the fights between county and national government and the Jubilee that has really destroyed, almost destroyed the health sector. So are they speaking to the culture change that we need and the accountability that we need to implement these promises?
Asaska, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, Trevor, let's not forget that African countries, including Kenya, have international commitments in the agricultural sector. And if you remember in the 2009 Maputo Declaration, most of these countries have committed to give 10% of the national budget towards agriculture. And for 20 years down the line, Kenya has not been able to hit that target. It's always around maybe 3.5%. So it's a shame that we're not really prioritizing an industry that enhances our productivity and drives our economy.
You asked the issue of agriculture.
Yes, Prof, and that's right down your alley.
It's like
as an agricultural economist
of my life.
Yes.
I think there's a simple reason why you had lunch. You have supper. You have... It's there. We demand it. That's the bottom line. But I think the question you asked, and I think panelists, maybe something we need to look at. What do we need to do? Because we all know, and I'm always get baffled. We know, but you're doing nothing about it. One, I think it's important to reflect back in terms of the skills we provide for the youth in the education system. And deliberately will be geared. How can a country like Ukraine, probably in one of our counties, be supplying grains to the world? And they have only 6 months in a year to grow those grains. We have 12 months. My mind goes back to a Bogo farm. I have some you can Bukula. The one we have in Kiambu here called the Waruyu farm. The extension farmers. And I can tell you, Trevor, if an extension person has come to the farm, the maize was very different from the other farm. These are the kind of things we actually want to bring back. I like her point. It's actually almost, I don't know, it's almost treason opening something in this country, the way you go through, you give up.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we are looking for ease of doing business. I give this example. When we used to get our DL, driving license, we used to queue.
Yeah.
And to get it, you give 1,000. Right now, you can get through your phone. This is the kind of thing when you get kids into aid. And the concept in a country, Trevor, which cannot feed their people, is headed for disaster.
Yeah.
Look at U.S. Look at any country. What they do, they make sure that there's enough for their people. I think that's something we need to reflect back. And we should, and I like you're using the free trade aid in Africa, we should be the one exporting grains out there.
Yeah.
Not exporting to us. So I think it's something we must get that. I like the word she has used, mature.
Yeah.
We are exiting that in terms of even energy.
Okay.
How do we get back? And also, we parents, I think we have a problem.
And Professor, you're the one who said that every single time you're talking, something is always happening. Let me bring to your attention that the candidate Justina Wamai for the Roots Party has just arrived at the vicinity. She's ready to do the debate one, and Ken Mujungu is standing by with her in just a bit. Let's find out how she's feeling. And they have actually given a very interesting proposal, Prof, and I'll come to that in just a bit, on what they want to do to deal with the economy. They're talking about legalizing cannabis. But Ken, over to you first. How is she feeling?
And thank you, Trevor. And of course, Jacinta Wamai is here with us. She is the second candidate tonight for the first debate. How are you feeling now that you're here finally?
I'm excited. Yeah. Do you know I'm here to destigmatize our manifesto? So I'm energized and I'm sector.
You ready for this? What did you do ahead of the debate?
I prepared accordingly. You know, Kenyans are not bright, so I need to come off smart.
So we're looking forward to the debate and all the best. Asante sana. Asante. All right, back to you, Trevor.
Thank you, Ken. And Prof, you're finishing your thoughts on this.
Let me finish. I like this commercial break. Just comes to me. Yeah. So I think that's something, the point I was making here, we must do whatever it takes to ensure we are food secure.
Okay.
Had the opportunity to talk to the military people. If we depend on our eggs from Uganda and there's war, they'll just stop the food. They don't even have to use a tank.
Yeah.
They'll come over.
Okay.
And I think that's something we need really to look at in terms of how do we make our country secure. Okay. And if there's something I had to do, one thing, agriculture.
Yeah.
It refers to manufacturing.
Yeah, but there's a twist. There's now a twist to this entire agriculture issue. We've talked about Kenya Kwanza manifesto and Azimio manifesto. The Roots Party is talking about legalizing cannabis. That's
the point I was going to. I hear you, Trevor, but let me ask you, and I think we need to be more serious, and I think the presidential candidate is already visiting some farms in the U.S. of where they plant. How much of GDP does that crop bring to those economies, even where they do it? Very little.
Yeah.
Then the second thing is, do we feed on that thing? There are farms here in Naivasha planting flowers. We never eat on those flowers. The most people Kenya will cash your call with their kids are in Naivasha.
Yeah.
So we also need to protect what people eat and what we sell for export. That balance is very important. And I will probably go towards grains. But the other thing is we need to change even the way we look at the grains. And I always give this example, and I think that Wako is here, I can give this example.
Yeah.
If we had unga in this cup, maize, it cannot even feed Wako. I know they don't eat ugali these days. But if we had muchere, it can feed all of us here. Okay. We need to change the grain revolution. India, Southeast Asia, there are more people than we are.
Yeah.
India is surpassing everybody in the world
in
the population. But you have never heard people have.
Okay.
Because they changed.
All right.
Anajua kwako unatoka, hakuna chakula akiwa hapana ugali.
But Dr. Baraza, let me bring in on this issue of the Roots Party manifesto. Speaking about legalizing cannabis, yani weed. First, what would it take for that to happen? And is it a viable resource?
I think before I come to cannabis, I just want to chip in on what Prof has said about agriculture. We have strangled agriculture.
Okay.
I tried to farm. I got a big farm in Magarini. I tried to do pineapples. I tried to do sugarcane in Kwale. I tried to do mangoes. You hear of markets out there, but there is no support system for farmers in this country.
Yeah.
I have now given up, but there is market out there. Now, the problem with this country is we like importing everything and anything because of what we stand to gain out of that. I know of so many youth who, in my endeavor to farm, I was meeting them in Kajiado. Young people, graduates, they are getting an acre here because they had, you can grow tomatoes, you can grow onions, but we strangled it. You go down Narok, young people on weekends going to Narok to get farms to try to grow wheat.
Yeah.
So they are trying. It's not lack of will on the part of the youth.
Okay.
They are trying, but we strangle the agricultural sector because we want to import eggs, and of course, who is importing the eggs? And what about that scheme in Galana?
Galana Kulalu.
It was hyped. We all waited. We expected we are going to feed ourselves with that maize there, and then it just went silent. What happened? And of course, there is the issue of corruption. They are in this whole agricultural sector.
Yeah.
Our youth can make a living and be rich within the agricultural sector. But we strangle it. Now, coming to cannabis, okay, they say there are countries who have who are making incomes out of it.
Yes.
I think they need to convince us and to show us real data and statistics on how much they are getting and how we are going to protect our youth. I think the excited ones are not looking at it from the point of view of how much income.
Yeah.
They are excited for other reasons.
Okay.
So we need to be convinced that it's not a dangerous thing that we are driving our youth into, and that actually wherever it has been legalized, wherever it has been made as part of the agricultural sector, that it is giving them the returns that really go into the economy to improve the economy.
All right. And Wanjiru, is this an alternative revenue stream? Because it is in their manifesto, the Roots Party of Kenya manifesto.
It is in their manifesto. And if you'll allow me, I'll just add something on the excellent points raised on the agriculture sector, which is it's important to prioritize agriculture. It's important to recognize a lot of agriculture in Kenya is smallholder farmers. It's important to recognize that as you're bringing in technology, it has to be suitable to the existing framework that we have, so that you're not bringing in very sophisticated technology that pushes out the smallholder farmer. And so my question is, where is the farmer? Where is farmer's voice? What is the governance system within the cooperatives? How do we, reawaken the cooperatives and the SACCOs that support agriculture? So I think much as we are talking about the technical and the economic priorities, we must not forget the governance. We must not forget the social accountability, the citizen voice and role, because that's Article 1. And really the sustainability of development is that citizens are at the center of development. Development with the people, by the people, for the people. And government serves the citizen. On the cannabis issue, of course, we want to maximize revenue streams. But we must remember that Kenya's problems are not just economic. We also have social problems. We have political problems. So one of the things I'm finding with the discussion we are having is that there's a strong emphasis on economic needs, which is really, really good. That's progress because it means our democracies are maturing. But then we are pushing out some of the social and governance issues. They've kind of taken a backstage, and they have to go in tandem. On the issue of marijuana, there's a social side to it. Number one, right now, marijuana is illegal. Bangi is illegal in Kenya. What this means is there's a lot of young people who use the weed that are in prison because of owning or using small amounts of weed. There are recommendations to decriminalize Bangi, so that you can deal with that problem, because I think that creates inequality and that fails to deal with, there's a disconnect between the law and the social reality.
Yeah.
So if we are going to go into marijuana farming commercially, we then need to look at marijuana in terms of its medicinal contribution, but also as a drug, and ask ourselves, how well are we managing our drugs at present? How well are we managing alcohol? How well are we managing tobacco? What are the health impacts of these drugs? Because they are drugs much as they are legalized. And marijuana has, different connotations because of the historical context. But the broader question is, what is the social support system? Kenya is quickly developing a drinking problem. Our young people are quickly developing drinking problems. This has been exacerbated by our kind of skewed taxation that we have on alcohol that makes it cheaper for young people to take hard drinks than it is to drink maybe lower levels of alcohol. So we need to talk about social impacts of the decisions we make, economic decisions we make, so that we have a holistic conversation. So my view is we are looking at one aspect, but missing the bigger picture.
Okay. Asaska, is it a realistic proposal?
I find the Roots Party's proposal quite controversial and at the same time interesting. If you ask me personally, I would look at it differently a bit. Yes, there's a social problem around drugs in Kenya. I don't doubt that fact. But if you look just around East Africa, if you look at Rwanda and Uganda, they've legalized the medicinal use of cannabis. And they're making money of it. They're exporting it just like tea or coffee. And they have investors who have come in and they're making money out of it. And that way they're having an alternative revenue stream that is helping develop the country. So I'm not opposed to maybe looking at it differently and having tough guidelines surrounding the production of cannabis. I think it's something maybe we can look at because
but
currently we have 10 countries
we don't
in Africa.
have enough regulations to deal with the drugs we have currently. So if we add another one, wouldn't
that's
that be
definitely an issue that needs to be addressed fast. And if you remember the late MP of Kibra, he brought the Cannabis Control Bill of 2018. And he had good proposals in there because it can be used for medicinal value. And if we restrict it, not for recreational purpose, maybe we'll be able to have very strong guidelines that can ensure that the drug cannot be misused.
Okay. Nerima? I'm not coming to you last on this cannabis issue for any reason. No.
Now, on that one, I like that you've come to me next because I feel I hold the same opinion as Asaska. It's about looking at the differences. It's interesting. It really is. We're thinking outside the box because we have to. We're talking about a population that is majority youth. And not only is it now, it will be for decades to come. And we're talking about a global economy and a global citizen population that will continue to grow. Our health continues to improve. The standards continue to improve. So how are we managing? So things that are going to be key is access to resources, climate change, the environment, and managing pollution as we continue to increase and decrease the number of vehicles or the kind of transport and carbon monoxide going to the environment. So for me, looking at the regulations, if it's for medicinal use, it's very, very helpful for many people who are going through all sorts of long-term illnesses. It is even sometimes prescribed. And it's necessary for them to be able to survive. But then I think what a lot of people are worried about is the misuse of that. And it's the same with all the drugs that we're talking about, like Wanjiru has mentioned.
So, Prof, jump in.
I think I'll pick from what he said. And it's economics. If you legalize something, it loses that value it had. And it doesn't become like a gold, the black gold. But I think that what is important, and hearing that it has, and when you're right, it has the value in terms of medicinal. I think what we are balancing here is what do we do for export and what we do also for food security. So we need to balance that. So we can sell, but not at the expense. I think the first step is to ensure every Kenyan has enough food. That's the first thing. We can still plant flowers. We can plant tea. Tea plays two parts. It plays as an export, but also consume. But it's not food really.
Okay.
I cannot have tea and I say I've had lunch.
Okay.
So we think to be careful in that. The contribution to the economy is questionable, and I hope they have done their maths. I've just looked at it, and really no economy is actually saying we are getting so much from it. But the most important thing is medicinal, because it's medicinal, it helps us now to be productive in other sectors.
Yeah, Dr. Baraza, I know you still want to be convinced in terms of how much money it brings to the economies that have legalized it, but legally speaking, if that was to happen and make cannabis legal, what impact would it have on the previous rulings on people who are incarcerated as we speak for having had some marijuana on them? What impact would that create in the judiciary where you've served before?
If they legalize marijuana now, what it will have on the people in the cells?
Yes.
Well, I guess, is the law retroactive?
No.
I think the law doesn't apply retroactively, but I think the issue here is not the legalization. I think good points have been raised around Wajakoya's or that manifesto about marijuana.
Yes.
I think if it is properly managed, and personally I want to be convinced that it is of an economic value.
Yeah.
If it is, then I think a law can be passed, an appropriate law can be passed. We put in place mechanisms to protect the youth from abuse, and then I think that will be okay. But I need to be convinced that there is some useful. It is a useful venture in terms of agriculture.
All right. Let her finish. I'll come to you. Yeah. Go ahead.
As to and then that will take care of the abuse which has caused the fellows in the cells to be in the cells.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, Asaska, you wanted to jump in?
Yes, I'd like to add on what Ms. Baraza has mentioned, that yes, definitely there's a social problem. Yeah. We all agree. And if you look at the 10 countries, I would like to clarify, the 10 countries in Africa that have legalized cannabis, they've only legalized for medicinal use except South Africa. South Africa has legalized both for medicinal use as well as recreational use. So yes, there's a fear around the social problem that the cannabis will bring about. But I also want us to look outside the box, as Nerima has mentioned, that, it's estimated that in Africa alone, cannabis has a market, is worth about $7 billion by 2023. So it's a market that maybe we could try and figure out how best we can get into for the benefit of our development agenda in the country.
Okay. Wanjiru?
Yeah, so I was going to just be clear that I'm not advocating that it don't be legalized. Yeah. I think I'm actually a proponent of, if you look at the social reality, cannabis is being used, it's being used by youth, that's why they're winding up in jail. So first of all, it shouldn't have been criminalized because people shouldn't be in jail because of smoking cannabis. That is quite regressive, and so that's a situation. But I think the case that Wajakoya is making is let us legalize cannabis, and I say yes, let us legalize it for medicinal, also for social because it's in use, and regulate it in the same manner that we would regulate other substances. Okay. But recognize that right now our regulation of other substances is not doing so well. Yeah. That there is a risk that we go in and legalize and we create a culture that is going to destroy our youth. And it's not just youth who have problems with substances, people our age, because we tend to moralize the use of substances instead of looking at maybe the practical. Maybe we don't deal with our mental health issues so well, maybe our social structures. So this is why I'm saying we need a proper policy framework that looks at the issue holistically, not just from an economic point of view, and definitely not from a moral point of view.
Okay, let's move away from the economy and now talk about the war on corruption. And Dr. Baraza, I'll start with you on this. You've been at the helm of the judiciary. What is really hindering the war on corruption?
The war on corruption is being hindered by corruption.
Corruption itself.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I think it is.
Yes.
Because we have institutions to fight corruption. We have the law to fight corruption. We have constitutional provisions, although we've watered them down, as Wanjiru says. So what is the problem?
Yeah.
And so we hear of cases of corruption, and they are major, and there are many. They are on a daily basis. They come to the courts, and probably you hear about them day one, and then that's the end of it. We just never hear of people getting convicted for corruption. So I don't know what happens, but I want to imagine that there is corruption in the fight against corruption.
People have blamed that on the judiciary for not explaining.
Well, I'm saying I'm not exonerating the judiciary from the corruption issue at all. Because there are things you just can't explain. Or in other institutions, those other institutions to fight corruption.
When you say the things you can't explain, what do you mean?
You arrest people. And by the time you go to arrest a person, you must really have a reason. So what happens beyond the arrest? All right? What happens beyond the being charged in court? I think there is so much which happens in that chain of dealing with corruption. And my argument is that there is corruption, which is fighting to sustain corruption.
So, Prof, what then would be the solution?
Just deal with it head on. There's no two ways about it.
The Roots Party is suggesting bringing back the death penalty.
You deal with it head on. And what am I talking about head on? We know some countries, you mess up and you are in. That's it. And look, this terrorism. We, as African culture, we respect leadership a lot. Because that's how we've grown up, to respect leadership. And I'll give you an example. Magufuli, and God bless his soul. Magufuli convinced Tanzania there was no COVID. Maji Lilani. They believed him. We knew there was. But that trust of leadership. So today, if that leadership tells us, Kenyans, I don't want this nonsense. Wako you swap, you're in. When it's settled up, stay there until we sort it out.
But there's always the presumption of innocence.
Somebody's even going that we cannot arrest her. Fine. You see, the narrative you're going, you are guilty unless proved.
You're innocent until proven guilty.
We'll prove you when you're inside there.
But Dr. Baraza, the reason I'm coming to you on this is because
the animal you're dealing with.
Firsthand.
The animal we are dealing with. And let's be a bit serious, and I think we are. The animal we are dealing with, it's what is making our food expensive today. The animal we are dealing with is the one which is making very unsafe to go certain areas.
Let me bring back Baraza before I come to the rest of my panelists. How can it be dealt with, having dealt with this firsthand?
I think the issue of integrity is what is standing in the way on the fight against corruption. It's corruption. It is lack of integrity. And we should deal with it seriously. Look at the people that we have in our institutions. Are they corruptible? From where I sit, I think they are corrupt people.
But Prof, we have enough
who are not able to deal with corruption. And that is how those cases go in such a zigzag manner that you never get to get the outcome there. If they are
look at even the word the president. He said last week. Huyu atafunga nyinyi. We are looking for people tutafungwa.
All right.
Why should a youngster, who is perhaps my grandson, is on the road with a 33 million car? What the hell have you got the car from? Surely, even if my father is built, whatever, is that a priority? And I think she's right. It's in our bones. And you know, is something in your bones, you have to go through the cancer process.
Yeah.
You have to go through that process. At times we cut it off.
Okay. All right.
So here,
yes.
Sorry, let me just interject. We watered down chapter 6 of the Constitution.
Too much.
Yeah.
We watered it down because right now I don't understand how people who are facing charges of corruption are the ones seeking the leadership position. How are they ever going to fight corruption? Our devolution, the gem of our Constitution, what is killing devolution is corruption.
Yeah.
And they are the same fellows who are benefiting from corruption in those counties.
Yeah.
And they are the same ones running for positions of leadership. How are they ever going to fight corruption?
Yeah.
I think their main aim is to come and preserve themselves. It is unfortunate we watered down chapter 6, and so we are going to go in circles on this issue of corruption.
Okay, Wanjiru, I'll come to you and talk about this, but let's cross over now to Busara Naman, who's standing by. This time it's not you, Prof. Busara Naman is standing by with the security situation at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, where this multimedia broadcast is coming to you live. Busara?
Na mtazamaji, moja kwa moja tuangazie swala zima la usalama katika chuo hiki ambapo mdahalo unafanyika, na kwa mengi zaidi tunaungana na mkuu wa kitengo cha usalama. Moja kwa moja ningependa ukaribie na uanze kwa kujitambulisha alafu tuendelee.
Kwa majina naitwa Benjamin Mwanzi, Sub County Police Commander Lang'ata.
Na ningependa utueleze, je, ni mikakati gani ambayo mmeweka kuhakikisha kwamba tuko salama, na je tusiwe na wasiwasi?
Nataka kuhakikisha wa Kenya na watu wote ambao wamefika pande hii na kwamba usalama uko sawa sawa. We have made the necessary arrangements. Tumekuwa hapa since the governor's debate, and since then we have been scaling up security. Kwa saizi security iko sawa sawa, na nahakikisha wananchi ya kwamba wasiwe na wasiwasi yote. Tumeweka usalama ya kutosha.
Naam, basi tayari ameshatueleza kwamba kila kitu kiko shwari, inamaanisha kwamba tusiwe na wasiwasi. Lakini cha mno, je, bado mnaangazia ni akina nani wanaingia? Ni waalikwa tu ama mnaruhusu mtu yoyote?
Si mtu yote anakubaliwa, ni wale wamealikwa. Iko petting kwa gates, iko petting iko several petting areas kabla hujafika mahali ya